Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Barton Publishing and Diabetes Solution Kit, or high blood pressure, high blood solution, high blood. Boy, this is not starting out right. High blood sugar solution kit. And with Dr. Scott Saunders. Today is April 13th.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about some myths today about hypertension and cholesterol and wherever else we go. So welcome, Dr. Saunders. How are you today?
Excellent. Now I'll start off with our what do you call it? A disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
We the information you get here is general information and may apply to you, but it might not apply to you, and that's where you use whoever you work with, your professional, to help you decide whether that information is right for you or not. This is general information for a lot of people. Okay, so
Okay.
I'll just start talking about cholesterol. I've been doing a lot of research lately on cholesterol and diabetes, partly because that we're putting out a healthy heart solution kit and how to keep your heart healthy. And we've just been pushed for so long. It's been like 2 generations of doctors now have been told that cholesterol is like the most important thing you can think about. And Lipitor is like the #1 drug prescribed in the world. And these are like, this is really important stuff. And then you look into it and you go, gosh, it's really not that important. It's really not that good. There was a study done in England where they used AI. And the advantage of AI, see, this is what I think the advantage of AI is. If you look at, and AI is artificial intelligence, so this is computer learning. So the computer has no political ambitions at all, right? And there's no emotion entered into this. And they don't care what so and so said or what this expert said. They don't care about any of that. AI just looks at, okay, what's the data? And so when in England, when they took 100,000 people and just stuffed all their information into a computer database and asked certain questions, they got out some really interesting things. And one of them was cholesterol. So the odds of dying from heart disease, cholesterol wasn't even on the list. In fact, when they went down the list, they finally found it at number 46 out of 48.
Wow.
It was so unreliable or unimportant or not even related. I mean, when there's correlation, at least there's going to be the computer's going to say, hey, there's some correlation here. But this was like almost zero correlation. It's almost nothing. So where does all this come from? Why did all this happen? And it's a very interesting story about a group in Massachusetts at the Harvard, the medical school there, when somebody said, there's cholesterol deposits in your heart, therefore high cholesterol must be causing those deposits to be in your heart. And so they kept going. They would do studies and they go, well, it doesn't really show it. Well, what if we did the study this way? And they kept trying to do different studies to find some correlation to the high cholesterol theory. They took rabbits and they just stuffed them with cholesterol, and they got heart disease in their heart, and cholesterol deposits in their heart. Well, rabbits normally don't eat any cholesterol at all, so it wasn't really a good study, but it was good enough for the people that were selling drugs to lower heart disease with cholesterol. So we ended up with all of these drugs to lower cholesterol and talking about it all the time. Why? Well, because these advertisers, the companies that are selling these drugs, have billion-dollar advertising budgets. Well, if you had a billion-dollar advertising budgets, I'm sure you could pretty much put out anything you wanted, and everybody in the world's going to hear it, and they're going to go, gee, I've heard that before, and they're going to start thinking that it's true, whether it's true or not. But who's going to do the research on it? Well, doctors are supposed to do research on it. Doctors are supposed to be able to advise you what's right for you. And to tell you the truth, in the last 20 years, I have prescribed Lipitor or equivalent cholesterol medications 3 times.
Wow.
Three people. Everybody else, I've been able to get their cholesterol normal, their heart disease normal, get them back to normal in a reasonable amount of time. One patient I saw today, as a matter of fact, it's been almost 3 years that he was told that if he didn't have a bypass surgery on his heart, he'd be dead in 30 days. Here he is 3 years later. He never had the bypass surgery. He came in to see me. We made some other changes. And his heart, he just had an echocardiogram. His heart's doing great. It actually looks normal ejection fraction, normal function of the heart. So, so it's not, and his cholesterol is still high, by the way. And it's, the level of cholesterol is not specifically related to heart disease. The idea of lowering your cholesterol is misguided at best. Some people, like I said, 3 times I prescribed it because these people had familial hypercholesterolemia, and just like the rabbits, their cholesterol's 300s and they're building up levels. And so one of the things that we did, not the only thing, was to use a medication to stop them from making so much, for heaven's sakes. And that's okay. So what's really interesting about this is there was a huge study done in Korea. 12.8 million adults. This is the largest study ever done. And it shows the same thing that's been in every study that's ever been done on cholesterol. And that is there's a U-shaped curve. In other words, U-shaped curve means the death rate is on one side and the cholesterol is on the other side. And as your cholesterol gets lower, your death rate goes up. And as your cholesterol gets higher, your death rate goes up. And there's an optimum level of cholesterol. And guess what that optimum is?
What is that?
It's between 200 and 240 would be in the range, but the perfect level of cholesterol is 220.
So what do the doctors say is a high cholesterol level that is dangerous?
Anything over 200. But if you have to look at the death rate, and every study has shown this, as you drop below 200, your death rate goes up rather dramatically. So in young men, if you give a 35-year-old, if you get their cholesterol down to 120, they have triple the death rate of somebody who is 220. So
why would that be? Why would that low cholesterol actually mean a higher risk of death?
That's an excellent question. Okay, so yeah, and why are the doctors saying, gosh, the lower the better? And yet we're seeing this rise in death rate with lower cholesterol. The reason is cholesterol is so important for your body. Cholesterol is needed for making your brain, making every single cell in your body. In fact, if I were to take all the cholesterol out of your body, you would die quicker than if I took all the oxygen out of your body. Wow. It is that important. And all of your steroid hormones are made out of cholesterol. So cortisol, your adrenal glands have to have cortisol. Your testosterone requires cortisol, requires cholesterol. Your cortisol requires cholesterol, and testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and DHEA and pregnenolone and coenzyme Q10 requires cholesterol. And these aren't like just a little bit. If you drop the cholesterol, those hormone levels drop down with it. And that's been shown with testosterone. So all these men, injecting testosterone and then trying to get their cholesterol down. It's like, dude, you don't have to inject testosterone. Just get rid of that cholesterol medication. Your cholesterol will come up to normal, and then you can make testosterone normally again. So that's the support of your body requires cholesterol in every cell, and all the steroid hormones. And many, many other things in your body require cholesterol.
So does this mean we should eat the bacon? Bring on the bacon?
Bring on the bacon. Actually, not necessarily. The point that I'm making is the issue is not cholesterol. That's not the reason that people get heart disease. And just narrowly focusing on lowering your cholesterol does not help you, because if all you do is lower your cholesterol, you actually increase your death rate. So that's not a wise thing to do. However, there's the bigger picture, and that is how do you prevent deposits of cholesterol in your arteries? And that's where the bacon comes in, and other forms of high fat, high protein, and high calorie diets, essentially. So the only thing that has been proven to reverse and take away the cholesterol out of the arteries is a very high fiber diet. And multiple studies that have been done, multiple different doctors, different places have shown a very high fiber diet, essentially sort of a vegan high fiber diet, works really well for that. So that begs the question, wait a minute, doctor, you just gave me this diabetes solution kit that has a ketogenic diet in it. And what's a ketogenic diet? Well, you're taking all the carbohydrates out. So you're not going to have fruit, and there's certain vegetables you can't eat. What gives there? Okay, so we chose for diabetes, we chose a diet that most people can do that will take away all of the excess carbs that are keeping the blood sugar up to allow you to get sensitive to insulin again. So it's not the only way it can be done, but it certainly is overall a simpler way and a faster way to get your insulin resistance, to avoid insulin resistance or stop that, so you get insulin sensitive again, so that you can have normal metabolism. So this is to normalize metabolism. But remember, if you look in the book, there's a list of free foods, and don't just skip over that list. A lot of people just skip over the list of free foods. You can have all the broccoli you want. You can have all the lettuce you want. You can have all the celery you want. Guess what? They all have fiber in them. And that's where your fiber is going to come from. So you can eat a high fiber diet and be in phase one. And it's not that hard.
And we just happen to have a product coming out with a lot of fiber. Have you talked about fiber greens on the webinar yet?
Yes, we have. Joe was on it telling us about it last week. And I've actually tried it. It works great.
Tell you the truth, it's becoming one of my favorite products that we have. And I want to send it to my mother, who's on a lot of pain controlling meds, which means she's kind of constipated. She also has heart disease. In fact, she was just in the hospital this week because she got an injection, a certain one, and then ended up with a heart problem the next day. But I want to send it to her to help that fiber in her body help take away that stress from the heart. for sure.
Yeah.
We have one question already from David Earl Brown about cholesterol. Actually wants to make a statement. I had a fairly high cholesterol when I went to the doctor last year, and the doctor prescribed a Lipitor. But when I objected, he changed it to a non-statin, which I eventually also rejected and focused on your diets. My triglycerides dropped way down with control of blood sugar, and my LDL cholesterol is also modestly down. So here's a success story right here from David Earl Brown, who did not take the cholesterol meds and focused on his diet. And now he's much healthier. Thank you for sharing.
And what's cool about that is that he's much healthier in many different ways, because it's not just the cholesterol that he's focusing on. He's changed his diet. He's changed his metabolism. And he's improved the bacteria in his intestines, and there's a lot of different benefits to the way he's doing it, as opposed to using a medication.
How do you talk to your doctor about getting off some of these cholesterol meds?
Oh, it's not hard. It's just when you don't need them anymore, then you don't have to take them. So you talk to your doctor and ask, at what point, as my cholesterol goes down, at what point will I no longer need this medication? And then you just do your dietary changes until you come to that point, and there you have it.
So in this study, you said where cholesterol was like number 46 out of 48 for heart disease. What were the top contenders?
That is really interesting. So atrial fibrillation was a big one, which means atrial fibrillation happens when there's not enough energy in the heart. So the electrical system isn't functioning well. And so fibrillation means it's not coordinated, beating boom, 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 boom. Instead, it's going blah, 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 all over the place. So, and that means that happens when there isn't enough energy in the heart. So lack of energy. Another one was socioeconomic status, and a few lifestyle type things, which are dietary things. But what's interesting is like diabetes didn't show up on the top 10 list either. Smoking was down to like number 6 or something like that. And above that, let's see, hypertension was also not even on the top 10 list, high blood pressure. So let's see. Socioeconomic status was a couple. Oh, this is an interesting one. Schizophrenia or severe mental illness was very high on the list, was in the top 10, above hypertension and above cholesterol, of course. But yeah, isn't that interesting?
Very interesting. I read in February, I think that's usually the heart healthy month. So everyone sends out emails about their heart. I think I had read that depression is an indicator of heart disease, or basically maybe your outlook on life, whether or not you find joy, whether or not your gratitude, does that make a difference in how your heart performs?
Oh yeah, severe depression, that's part of the mental illness in the top 10 was schizophrenia and depression and anxiety. But yeah, depression is really big. You have to consider that there's more going on inside your body than what we look at, like the biochemistry. We try to ferret out every little, parse out every little chemical or thing that we do, but really it's a conglomeration of a whole bunch of different things. And so when people are depressed, they tend not to eat as well, and when they don't tend not to exercise as well, they don't feel motivated to do anything. They don't have a good focus. Their brain isn't focused very well, and so they're not awake and active and doing things. And so it affects how their heart works too. So it's not just one thing. It's like the big picture.
Does cardio have any risk? So would higher cardio mean higher risk for heart disease?
Like a cardio workout?
Yes, like running a marathon every day.
Yeah. Actually, it's kind of interesting that it doesn't pose a greater risk, but nor does it propose less of a risk. And the idea that people are going to work out their heart and prevent heart disease and stop heart disease, it doesn't really work that way. That's not the way. That's not the way the system works. So while it's important to exercise, you can exercise too much and create a lot of inflammation in your body, oxygen-free radicals from the excess exercise, which, if you don't have enough antioxidants in your body, can do damage to your blood vessels and cause heart disease. So it's not a simple question of just more exercise is better. There's a good amount exercise, and there's too much, and there's too little, and then there's this range of perfect.
All right. So I think we have another. Well, David Earl Brown wanted to comment that he just flat out rejected the statins from his doctor. And then we have, does fasting help prevent A-fib? This is Robert from Oregon.
Okay, good question. The answer is yes, maybe. Because one of the things that fasting does is increases your AMPK, which tells your body to make more mitochondria, which is what your cells need, electrical system in your heart needs to prevent atrial fibrillation. So for prevention, fasting is great. I have a patient who I've seen recently who had atrial fibrillation for 14 years. And he started fasting. He did like a 30-day water fast, and then has done 7-day fast since then, has lost a lot of weight, and he still has atrial fibrillation. So if I don't know if you can reverse it by fasting, but there may be other things you can do, increasing the energy production of the cells. But once you have AFib, it kind of gets like stuck in a rut, so to speak. And there's been several studies, they'll shock the heart to bring everything back, that just give it a sudden shock and then everything starts beating together again. And sometimes that'll stay and not go back into fibrillation. Or they can do what's called an ablation, where they take the part that starts the heartbeat, the node it's called, and they ablate it, which means usually they burn it either with microwaves or radiation or something, and so they block that part so that the rest of the heart can beat together. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it stays. So yeah.
Or then you do parts. So I know someone who has a pig heart, part of a pig heart, for dealing with AFib. I think I would try fasting first before I went there. Eloise Somerville asks, can a diabetic fast?
Yes, diabetics can fast. You have to be careful if you have type 1 diabetes and you're injecting insulin, that you don't fast and inject insulin at the same time. People with type 2 should have little problem fasting, except for one thing: they will tend to get hypoglycemia easier when they're fasting. Why? Well, because when you're not eating, then you're not bringing any sugar into your body. And if you have high insulin, insulin blocks you from using fat for energy. And now you have no source of energy left. And so that's called, and then the blood sugar starts dropping really low, and that's called hypoglycemia. So, it's easy to get hypoglycemia. So you may have to work into it. People with diabetes often have to do, okay, I'm going to do my 12 hours, I'm going to not eat after 6, and then I won't eat till 6 in the morning. And then I'll go up to 15 hours, and then I'll go up to 18 hours, and then I'll go up to 24 hours, and you work up to a fasting will prevent that. But just so that you know, to give you information, is that when rats were studied in this kind of low blood sugar, they found that they could improve their brain function by having the blood sugar drop low. So even though it feels bad for the blood sugar to drop low, you can get headaches and fatigue and weakness. And I know when I fast, when I used to fast, I used to get headaches and I would be hangry. I was easily annoyed when I was fasting, and my wife would say, "You haven't eaten yet, have you?" But now I don't anymore. So I've become used to it. And even if my blood sugar drops low, I've got enough of the glucose transport proteins in the brain to keep my brain going well. And that's where the benefit of low blood sugar is. So you don't have to be afraid of low blood sugar if you have type 2. If you have type 1 and you're injecting insulin and you're dropping, into the 30s or 20s, that's bad news. You don't want that. But if you get into the 50s or 60s and you're feeling it with headache and stuff, that's not a bad thing.
I almost want to make this a fasting webinar. I would love for people who are watching to put in what benefits have you seen from fasting. It's one of those painful things while you go through it, but sometimes all of a sudden you wake up and you have more energy or you have a clearer head. So I'd love to hear from anybody else on here if they've seen the benefits from fasting.
Today's Fixed Blood Sugar webinar is sponsored by Synachroma, our best-selling advanced blood sugar support formula. Now, thousands of people around the world are taking Synachroma every day as part of their program to fix their blood sugar using natural ingredients that simply work. Now, Dr. Saunders formulated Synachroma to meet key nutritional deficiencies that most people have unknowingly suffered from for far too long. With Synachroma, you get a blend of 6 key ingredients. The perfect combination of chromium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2, which it's important to take those two together, selenium, vanadium, and our 10-to-1 cinnamon bark extract. Now, if you're not already using Synachroma, I highly recommend that you give it a try and see how it helps your energy, your weight, and your blood sugar numbers. You can get Synachroma at bartonnutrition.com or on Amazon. If you get it at bartonnutrition.com, you can enter the coupon code webinar25 and you'll save 25% off at bartonnutrition.com. But I realize some people like to go to Amazon as well. So anyways, Synachroma, highly recommend. Now let's get you back to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar.
I wanted to ask you about the heart disease. What does calcium have to do with heart disease? Is that a better factor?
Okay. Calcium is always in the blood. We always have calcium. The calcium level has to be maintained very narrowly in a range so that everything will work. Calcium is one of the things that helps the muscles to work. For the heart, for example, won't beat without calcium. So the calcium level is always the same, but the calcium in the arteries, the buildup of calcium in the arteries happens because of cholesterol and plaque. So the analogy would be soap. If you've ever seen soap scum in your tub, and it's really hard to scrub off that stuff. What is it? Well, it's just fat, essentially. But the soap is fat, has a long molecule, and on one end there's a water soluble part, and then the other end is not water soluble, it's fat soluble. So when your hands are dirty, what is it? Well, the dirt from whatever you're doing sticks to what? It's the oils on your skin. And so you take soap, and the soap has the oil part, and then it has the water part. So it can grab onto all your oils, and then the water part can wash it all down. So that'll take all your oils off your skin, and then all your dirt's gone, and you look good. My hands are clean. And in the same sense, the cholesterol in your arteries there is a similar kind of process. And in the shower, when calcium from your water comes and binds onto that water soluble part. Now it's no longer water soluble, and all you have is that fat, and it just sticks. And then more comes, and it sticks, and then they stick onto each other because they'll bind to each other because it's all fat, but there's no water soluble part to allow it to wash down the drain. In the same sense, your cholesterol in your arteries, calcium comes and binds to it and makes it, now it's not water soluble anymore, so it can't be dissolved in the blood, and it just sticks onto your arteries. And that's where the calcium comes in. The calcium there is normal, but inflammation tends to cause calcium to deposit and build up and create these plaques.
And chelation can help get rid of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting thing that in the 1970s, they were doing chelation because those were the days when lead was in gasoline. There was lead everywhere. So people were getting regular chelation for lead. And some doctors found that they're like, wait a minute, we've cleared out the heart. This guy had really bad heart disease. And he got his chelation treatments for his lead, and he doesn't have heart disease anymore. He's like, I wonder about that. Where did that come from? So they started doing some research and found that, oh my gosh, you can actually clear up heart disease. Because what? If EDTA is what takes lead out of the body, but it also binds calcium really well. In fact, if you've ever seen those shower sprays that you just spray on your shower every day, you know what that is? EDTA. That's all it is. So the EDTA holds onto the calcium, pulls it off that soap, and now the soap has a water-soluble part on that'll just wash down the drain. So you don't have to scrub or anything. You just take the calcium off, and it washes down the drain. Well, that's essentially what happens when you give EDTA treatments IV. It goes around in the arteries and grabs the calcium and allows the cholesterol to then be soluble in the blood, so that it can go back to the liver and be reprocessed. And they did a large study. The NIH did a large study and found that it actually worked. It worked better than cholesterol medications and better than any other treatment that they had to reverse that they used there. They didn't do the dietary stuff, but it actually could reverse the heart disease.
So how does the fiber work within the oil and the water that's stuck inside your arteries?
The fiber works in a totally different way. The fiber is what your bacteria live on in your large intestine. So, and those bacteria then create anti-inflammatory chemicals, butyrates that help prevent depression, and they help decrease inflammation in the body, so you have less calcium being deposited in your arteries. So that's how the fiber works. It actually doesn't get into the blood at all. It just feeds the good bacteria in your intestines.
It's so like the trigger to start cleaning out, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cleansing. It's great.
Okay, let's take some questions. I have a question from Tom. He has two questions. Is there a right amount of cinnamon each day? And can you take cinnamon and berberine at the same time?
Oh, good questions. Yes. So a right amount of cinnamon. The active ingredient in cinnamon, you could probably go up on the dose a lot. The problem is that there are some substances in cinnamon that are also can be toxic in high doses. So you kind of are limited by that toxicity. So, but it's not generally an amount that you're going to take. You're not going to take, as a rule, tablespoons of cinnamon a day. That's quite a lot. And so, like in Cinechroma, for example, what we've done is concentrated that it's the water soluble portion, so that it doesn't have the toxins in it. And then the question about berberine, berberine is actually sort of like a natural metformin. It doesn't work in exactly the same way, but it has a lot of the same effects of metformin, and they can be used together.
Any dosage recommendations for berberine?
Yeah, berberine is usually 500 milligrams twice a day ish. Depends on the preparation that you get, but that's usually.
All right. So Dave and Cindy have a question about fiber greens. I'm on phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit and allow 20 grams of carbs per day. Can I take fiber greens when they are 5.4 grams total carbs, or should I wait for another phase?
Good thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So the issue I have with fiber greens is that the people making it required that we had a taste tester say, this is tasty, otherwise nobody will eat it. And so they put artificial sweeteners in there. So the carbohydrates that you're talking about are not sugar carbohydrates, because it's really a stevia that's being used there to sweeten it. The carbohydrates are fiber. And the fiber is good for you. That's what you want. That's why you're eating it. So the 5.4 grams, 4.4 of that is fiber, and the other gram is the stuff that's actually made into sugars. So you really only have 1 gram. So you could do it in phase 1 easily. In fact, we specifically were looking for a way that we could formulate a good fiber supplement with several different kinds of fiber, and with that would have low carbohydrates, so that people with diabetes could use it.
All right, thank you. I have a question from Jim. How can we determine medically if we have a fatty liver?
Ooh, good question. So the only way to know absolutely you have a fatty liver is with a biopsy. But ultrasound shows when an ultrasound of the liver is done, there's characteristics of fatty liver, and it says this looks like this could be fatty liver. And then if you do blood tests and your liver enzymes are elevated, it's likely that you have fatty liver, because that's indicating that there's a high turnover of cells. What these tests don't tell you is why you have fatty liver, because there's a lot of different reasons, one of which is type 2 diabetes, high blood sugar, metabolic syndrome. These metabolic problems do damage to the liver. But it's not the only thing. Alcohol will cause a fatty liver. Carbon tetrachloride, if you work in a dry cleaners, for example, there's the dry cleaning solution can cause fatty liver. So there are a lot of things that can cause fatty liver, and they're generally toxic things, including fructose and the like high fructose corn syrup, or even honey you have to be careful of, or agave nectar. These all have a lot of fructose in them. And so if you're eating a lot of fructose, you can get fatty liver too. That's all toxicity.
What are some other symptoms of fatty liver?
None. Mostly you have no symptoms at all. And it's just found incidentally. Oh, by the way, you have fatty liver. Well, it's usually done because like somebody does a blood test and their liver enzymes are elevated, and then they want to know, well, why are your liver enzymes elevated? Do you drink alcohol? No. Do you use a lot of solvents? No. And so you go through, okay, could be a metabolic problem. Why don't we do an ultrasound? They do an ultrasound. They go, yeah, it looks like fatty liver.
Now, is fasting a good way to get rid of fatty liver?
Oh, fasting is the best way to get rid of fatty liver,
Jim,
by far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. George Bonito has 2 questions. What is the best time to take fiber greens, and with or without food?
Okay. The best time for me, it's in the morning, because I don't know. it makes me very regular, so I don't have a problem with it. But some people will have a bowel movement soon afterward, and so they may not want to take it at night. So in the day is better, and I prefer it with food, with a meal, for the same reason that if you take it all alone, people can get get a BM, even diarrhea.
So do whatever best for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Andy says, I've had diarrhea for almost 2 weeks, and my A1C measured in late January of 2022 was 6.5. He lives in Canada. He was taking, but got off metformin, which was 2 capsules a day, 10 days ago. His morning blood sugar has varied between 5.1 and 5.9 in the last 10 days. So I don't know if that's a question, except maybe he's concerned about the diarrhea.
Okay. So the diarrhea could have been caused by metformin, but if you still have diarrhea after 10 days off of it, it's unlikely. There could be some other reason for diarrhea. The hemoglobin A1C is in the diabetes range. It's in the lower range. With your blood sugar in the 5.1 to 5.4, that's in the 120 to 150 range, if 180 range, if you're in the United States. So the blood sugar is elevated. It is diabetes, but finding out the reason why you have diarrhea is a good idea, especially after 10 days off metformin, because metformin can cause diarrhea and stomach upset and those kinds of problems. But that may not be the issue if you've been off it for 10 days.
So he did add a little extra that I didn't read in time. He says, I've been eating the brat diet during this time, and it was suggested that I could eat the foods noted in the low food map diet. Is it okay to eat all the foods noted in that diet?
Generally, the low FODMAPs diet is you're avoiding certain types of carbohydrates that cause gas and bloating and sometimes diarrhea in people that have irritable bowel syndrome, and that can be helpful. To say yes, you can eat all those. Generally, yes, you can eat all those, but in terms of your program for reversing your high blood sugar and diabetes, you still would count the carbohydrates, because many of the foods that are acceptable on the low FODMAPs diet are still high in carbohydrates, other kinds of carbohydrates, which you would have to count in your 20 grams a day.
All right. So we have Linda who asks or suggests, reading the book, The New Glucose Revolution. She's been advised to eat mostly 0 to low glycemic foods. Is this a good approach? If so, what is the best way to follow?
Okay. That's essentially the approach that we used in the diabetes solution kit. And so, yeah, that's a good way to follow it. So if you want to know how to follow it, then just get the diabetes solution kit, go to phase 1 and eat your low glycemic foods. And the reason for that is that the reason for type 2 is that the cells are just stuffed with sugar. And so you get your low glycemic food so that you don't stuff more sugar into those cells, and you allow those cells to use up all that excess sugar that they have. And so exercising is a good idea, and being on the low glycemic diet is a good idea too.
So we have a couple other questions about fatty liver. If you've already been diagnosed with my screen moved. Diagnosed with fatty liver, NASH, I'm not sure what that means. How is this impacting what liver needs to do to fight diabetes?
Okay. NASH, NASH is it's actually non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. That means that's fatty liver that's not caused by alcohol, and that's why they call it that. because everybody knew about the alcoholic hepatitis causing fatty liver. But then all of a sudden, there's so many people getting this other fatty liver and they don't drink alcohol. So there must be some other reason. And that is the metabolism. So and it's a good indicator, if you already have it, it's a good indicator that your liver is toxic on sugar, especially fructose. And so the way to get around this and away from this is to avoid sugar. And that's one of the reasons we chose to use the low glycemic diet, 20 gram carbohydrate, 20 gram or less carbohydrate diet for our phase 1, is so that you could use up all those excess carbohydrate calories and get the toxicity out. It's essentially a detox. So that's the way to do it. There's no drugs, there's no medications, there's no other way of doing it. A dietary is the only way, because everything you eat has to go through your liver. Your liver has to process everything that you eat. So, or whatever is absorbed anyway, those parts that aren't absorbed, like fiber. So that's why it's so important to be on that phase 1 of the program.
All right. So Jim asks, can testing ourselves for ketones in the blood or urine be an indicator of fatty liver?
No, not really. The ketones in the blood or urine indicate that you're burning, using fat for energy. And it would be the fat off your body and not the fat from your liver. Yes, you can use up the fat for the liver. And that's where being on phase 1 of the program, you actually can use up that excess fat in the liver and regenerate the cells that are lost, and your liver can function perfectly normally after that. So it's not a forever thing. It's only until you get your metabolism fixed. That once the metabolism is working, and you have normal ability to use sugars, fats, and carbohydrates, sugars, fats, and proteins, then your liver will function well again, and you won't have fatty liver anymore.
Easy as that.
Yeah.
All right. So Dave and Cindy, they were the ones that got off metformin who had some blood sugar readings in the morning. Asks, when I take my fasting readings in the morning, do the numbers fluctuate, and why do the numbers fluctuate high and low so much?
So that's an excellent question. We've answered that multiple times in different ways, but I'm glad you asked it in that way, is why they fluctuate so much. The reason is because there's multiple factors that are involved in what your blood sugar is. It's not just what you've eaten. And so it's a common thing to say, I didn't eat anything. Why is my blood sugar going up? And sometimes it's low and sometimes it's not. It's because the hormones that allow you to maintain your blood sugar in that range all the time are changing things. And so if you're insulin resistant, then it's going to go up. But then when it drops down, you release glucagon that tells your liver, make more sugar. So then you make more sugar, but you're insulin resistant, so then it goes up. And so that those high fluctuations are an indicator that you still have insulin resistance. And so that's how you know that you need to stay on that program until you have good, normal, between 70 to 90 blood sugars consistently every morning. Then you know that you no longer have that insulin resistance. Or if you're in Canada, it would be 4 to 5. Your blood sugar between 4 and 5 would be excellent.
Okay, very good. Betsy asks, if we know metformin is toxic and insulin shots are not proper treatment, why can't we discontinue and replace with alternative treatments right away? I have already replaced metformin with synochroma and berberine. Why take insulin if it does not address the resistance?
Wow, that's a great question. And because, well, I think personally that if you work with your doctor, whoever prescribed it, and said, look, I'm doing this program to lower blood sugar, And I'm really worried that my blood sugar is going to get too low. And so I would like to go off the insulin and see how I can manage with the blood sugar off of insulin. So, and that's how you work with your doctor on that.
Okay. Myrna, hello, Myrna, asks, when fasting, is that with no food, no liquids all day? How many days would you need to fast, or what is the best method of fasting?
Okay, so there's all kinds of fasting, because let's just say what fasting is. Fasting is an empty stomach. That's what it means. That's all it is. Okay, so how does your stomach get empty? Well, you don't put anything in it. And what does anything mean? Well, anything is anything. So if you drink something, you don't have an empty stomach, right? So, and that includes water. So when you look at like research on animals over many different generations, like they have rats, and when they fast, no food, no water for periods of time, they do better than if it's just no food and they drink water. Why is that? Well, the stomach releases a hormone called ghrelin, which is the growth hormone releasing hormone that it initiates all the repair in your body, starts the anabolic process, only when the stomach is empty. So if you put water in there, it's not empty anymore. You've distended the stomach, and by distending it, you stop the release of ghrelin. So the people who fast and say, well, I'm fasting, but I'm going to eat my little nut bar here, and I'm going to have my little soup here there, and I'm going to have some water there, and you know, every hour they're eating or drinking something, they're not getting the full benefits of fasting. So if you really want the benefits of fasting, it's nothing in your stomach for whatever period of time that is. Now, that begs the next question that she said is, how long can you do it? I have had people that have done water fasts for 30 days. I've had people do bone broth cleanses where they just drink like 16 ounces of bone broth twice a day for a month. There's all kinds of cleanses that have been around for 100 years. Dr. John Christopher they had a master cleanse that was essentially just a fast with some lemonade that you would drink twice a day. So there's all kinds of ways of doing it, but keep in mind that you don't want to be sipping that lemonade all day long. You want to drink it all down, you know, whatever your 16 ounces to allow your stomach to get empty, and then have an empty stomach for a long period of time. So intermittent fasting is where you fast for part of a day. So you have like one meal a day, for example. So then your next question was, well, when's the best time to fast? Nighttime is the best time to fast. So skipping dinner is a lot better than skipping breakfast. And skipping dinner and lunch is better than skipping breakfast, or just eating breakfast is better than just eating lunch, for example. So eating early in the day initiates your adrenal glands, and then as that adrenal drops off throughout the day, then having an empty stomach helps you to make ghrelin and then growth hormone and start the anabolic process, which is the repair of your body. So I hope that answers. We've talked about this a lot, but I hope that answers the fasting part.
Just in case you don't know, Dr. Saunders is like, gets the gold medal in fasting. Like, he's done it all. He's won it all. He can probably, and I think he's a wonderful example of what fasting can do for you. And when you say like no eating or no drinking, it makes me think of movies where you see someone who's about to die and they're left alone, either by other people or by themselves. And then they get up 3 days later and you're like, how did they survive? It's probably because of fasting. Their body started to repair themselves in the fasting stage. That's just a working theory I developed right now, but
I wonder. I don't know.
Okay, so Sheldon asks, what is the substitute for metformin?
Well, berberine would be great. One of the other things that we use is synochroma. And the reason we made synochroma, formulated it the way it is because most people, when I test, are deficient in chromium, vanadium, selenium, vitamin D. And these are things that all help you use sugar more efficiently, and they improve the enzyme function in your body to make your metabolism work well. So it's a lot easier to get off the medications if you have those. So that's why synochroma is a good choice for that too.
All right. I like this question. Is dark chocolate good for diabetes?
Dark chocolate's good for everything. It just makes you happy. If look at the carbohydrate content and say, okay, if I can take that carbohydrate content, or measure your blood sugar. If you eat dark chocolate and an hour later you check your blood sugar and it's through the roof, then that might not be good for you. But by itself, the chocolate's not an issue.
Thank goodness. Okay. William Davenport says, I've been doing intermittent fasting to get rid of my remaining belly fat. I am down to 140 pounds on my 5'10" frame. My blood sugar is still 78 to 100 in the morning. I'm not sure how much further I will have to go, as I can still pinch a couple inches of belly fat. I also take ACV a couple of hours before bedtime. Maybe that means lean ACV or supplement. Is there more I can do to get this done?
It sounds like you're doing it, and it's a process, not an event. And you've done remarkably well up to now. So I don't see any issue with continuing on that process and using up the belly fat. Now, just remember, belly fat, where does it come from? It's high insulin. So keeping your insulin down comes from avoiding food generally. So fasting is a great way to lower the insulin. And then avoiding carbohydrates is another important way to lower insulin. So, and sometimes artificial sweeteners in some people does raise their insulin levels. So you have to be careful of that too, because that can cause excess belly fat. And you go, what the heck? I'm not eating any carbs, but you're eating like chewing gum that's artificially sweetened, or drinking drinks that are artificially sweetened, or something like that.
Yeah. Remember, sleep makes a difference. Exercise makes a difference. Stress makes a difference. All right. Velo says, I've been on phase 1 for over 4 weeks, just over 4 weeks, lost a significant amount of weight, but I'm still measuring high blood pressure, 160s, 170s, over 85, 95. Is there something that I should be doing? So he says high blood pressure, but he's been on phase 1, so he must be on of the high blood pressure solution kit.
That could be, or it could be the diabetes solution kit. If the blood sugar is coming down to normal, the blood pressure should come down as well. But if it is phase 1 of the blood pressure solution kit, sometimes it takes more time. I don't know if that is the 160, 150, 160. The blood pressure is it come down from 180 to 150? If that's the case, then you're on the right track and you should keep going. If it's not, then what you may need is to find out why your blood pressure is elevated, because it's not always a metabolic process. Sometimes you actually have like a hormone abnormality, or I've had 2 cases in the last 10 years of the renal arteries. The artery that goes to the kidney is narrowed, and so the kidney is saying, hey, I'm not getting enough blood here, and keeps raising the blood pressure. So finding out what other reasons your blood pressure would be elevated would be a very good idea. And that goes for everyone. I want everybody to be included in that. If you're doing something, the diabetes solution kit, the blood pressure solution kit, the heart health solution kit, and things aren't working and you're going, gosh, this is not working for me. You know, people come on the program and they say, yeah, I've lost all this weight and my blood pressure's normal, my blood sugar's normal. And you're going, it's not working for me. Ask the question, why not? Because if it's not working for you, there's a reason. And then look at what are your hormones? What is your metabolism? Do you have any anatomical problems? Is there some other issue that hasn't been addressed yet, like with your doctor or your professional? So yeah, work with somebody to find out why.
Today's Fixed Blood Sugar webinar is sponsored by Synachroma, our best-selling advanced blood sugar support formula. Now, thousands of people around the world are taking Synachroma every day as part of their program to fix their blood sugar using natural ingredients that simply work. Now, Dr. Saunders formulated Synachroma to meet key nutritional deficiencies that most people have unknowingly suffered from for far too long. With Synachroma, you get a blend of 6 key ingredients. The perfect combination of chromium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2, which it's important to take those two together, selenium, vanadium, and our 10-to-1 cinnamon bark extract. Now, if you're not already using Synachroma, I highly recommend that you give it a try and see how it helps your energy, your weight, and your blood sugar numbers. You can get Synachroma at bartonnutrition.com or on Amazon. If you get it at bartonnutrition.com, you can enter the coupon code webinar25 and you'll save 25% off at bartonnutrition.com. But I realize some people like to go to Amazon as well. So anyways, Synachroma, highly recommend. Now let's get you back to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar.
So there's one other question maybe two. If someone has been diagnosed with 3rd stage kidney failure, can this program help them?
Yes, thank you for asking. Okay, stage 3 kidney failure means your creatinine or your estimated GFR is just bumped. It's not normal anymore. So that's stage 3. So that's not anything like dialysis or anything, but that's an indicator that there's a problem there. And if you address it and deal with it, it does stop the progress. Now, what I haven't seen is the kidney disease get reversed to be, up to like stage 2 or stage 1 or no kidney disease at all. But if you can prevent it from progressing from there, you could live your whole life at stage 3 without any problems. You're never going to have to go on dialysis that way. So stopping it in its tracks. Yes, if you're on the program and you detox, get all those toxins out, allow the kidneys to function normally. And even when you're on phase 1, when you're getting hypoglycemic, low blood sugars at times, that's okay. People often, like if your standard blood sugar is like you're always in the 200s, and then all of a sudden you drop to normal and you're 100, you may feel hypoglycemic. You might get headaches and feel fatigue and weakness. You go, oh my gosh, I feel so horrible when my blood sugar is 100. 100 is normal. So those are things that you may just have to live with for a short period of time to allow your set point, your thermostat, so to speak, to reset down to a normal level, because that's where you get the benefit from the kidneys and the brain for that matter, and the heart for that matter.
So Ellen, you still have you have hope. So you should get the diabetes solution kit. And then another person, Carlton, also wanted to know how to get the diabetes solution kit. So there are a couple ways. You can go to bartonwebinar.com, find out some more information. You can go to bartonpublishing.com. You can email support@bartonpublishing.com, or you can call us. Our number is 888-356-1146, or come back next week and ask again. But I think this has been a wonderful webinar. I love talking to you, Dr. Scott. You're so resourceful. You help a lot of people, and we're so glad you do. So thank you for your great questions. We look forward to seeing you another time. And I think that if you're struggling, come and listen to everybody else's questions. You're not alone. We may have the answer. At least feel encouraged, and that we can help you. So hopefully we'll see you guys next time. Probably Leslie and Joe will be back next week. But bye for now. Thank you for coming. Bye.